going into rehab?
I'm going to rehab.
You're going to go to rehab?
Yeah.
So you are still using? People were saying you're broke, but you're getting an RV tomorrow. How'd that work?
People know me when they'll make things easier for me.
So it was a gift?
Some rock stars reached the very pinnacle of success, enjoying the rewards of fortune, fame, and adoration, while others were shockingly brought down by bad decisions, wild spending, and personal betrayals, turning their once glamorous lives upside down. From bankruptcies to personal struggles, these legendary musicians experienced it all. Now let's dive into their stories and see how quickly the wheels of fortune and fame can turn when wrong choices are made. Number 1. Mick Fleetwood, Fleetwood Mac's drummer who went bankrupt. Mick Fleetwood is the legendary drummer of Fleetwood Mac, a band that rose to superstardom in the 1970s with albums like Fleetwood Mac and Rumors. These albums are still regarded as some of the best in rock history, and the band became one of the most commercially successful acts of the era. Yet, with all the enormous success of the band, his personal finances had gone to ruins. What was the problem? Wild spending combined with bad financial management. He lived highly extravagantly, buying multiple properties and never keeping track of his money. At the height of the fame of Fleetwood Mac, Fleetwood spent as if the money supply were endless. The sad thing was that it was not. In 1984, Fleetwood filed bankruptcy, owing millions.
I have a very strong image of breathing underwater, and it was very lucky that I ever came up.
Insolvency notwithstanding, he continued with Fleetwood Mac, which remains among rock's oldest enduring acts. Through the years, Mick Fleetwood has gotten his wealth going again through tours and business endeavors, although a lot more discreetly now. Number 2. Tom Petty, bankruptcy to beat the system. Tom Petty was unstoppable in the 1970s. Already the front of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Petty's no-nonsense heartland rock instantly made him an icon. It was albums such as 1979's Damn the Torpedoes that finally catapulted him to superstardom. Much of Petty's financial woes took place during the nasty fight between him and his record label that was controlling the rights to his music and didn't pay him fairly.
It was just too much money to pay for a record, I thought.
In 1979, Petty declared bankruptcy to reacquire rights over his work. It was a tactical declaration of bankruptcy for him to come out of his unfair contract. Filing for bankruptcy forced the record label to renegotiate the contract and enable Petty to further produce music on terms more favorable to him.
I'm just real glad it came out and the record's in the top 5 and everybody's happy and there's plenty of money for me and plenty of money for them.
Although Petty had to face an early financial struggle, he emerged as one of the most esteemed artists in the history of rock. Petty's career rebounded, and albums like Wildflowers from the 1990s brought him a second wave of success. More unfortunately, Petty died in 2017 of an accidental overdose on drugs. But his music and legacy continued to inspire many artists all over the world. Number 3. Meatloaf, lost his voice and his fortune. Meatloaf burst onto the scene in 1977 with his iconic album Bat Out of Hell, featuring his theatrical stage performances and operatic vocals, which became among the best-selling albums ever made. Due to all the wrong decisions and circumstances, Meatloaf was in a state of financial disrepair. After Bat Out of Hell's success, there was not nearly as good response from his following album, followed by lawsuits with his music partners over the rights to the songs, and a loss of his voice after some time due to vocal cord injuries.
I told you everything I possibly can.
All this, combined with extravagant spending habits, brought financial ruin upon him. In 1983, he declared bankruptcy with debts owed on lawsuits, bad management, and his poor health. Meatloaf overcame bankruptcy, and in the 1990s, Bat Out of Hell 2 was another blockbuster that brought him right back in the game. He continued with touring and album releases till his death in 2022. His career stood out as one of those really amazing comeback stories. Number 4. Ted Nugent, rockstar turned mink farmer? Ted Nugent was one of the most dynamic and outlandish performers of his era and wrote hits such as Cat Scratch Fever. With an unrestrained style of playing his guitar, Nugent became one of the most vivid characters in 70s rock. The one huge financial mistake Nugent ever made that cost him? He invested in a mink farm. He had considered that as a good business venture at the time, but it was disastrous. Added to that, Nugent usually lived beyond his means. By 1980, he filed bankruptcy with heightened debts due to bad investments and lavish spending. Nugent is still active in music today, touring for his die-hard fan base. He is also a political figure, highly vocal with his opinions and ideas.
Everywhere I go, they know that I'm a right-wing, Second Amendment, NRA, deer hunting guy. Because I don't play games, and I don't apologize for jack squat.
After the financial flops he faced throughout the decade of the 80s, Nugent slowly rebuilt his fortune through the years via his music, endorsement deals, and other ventures. Number 5. David Crosby. Drugs, jail, and bankruptcy. David Crosby was part of the folk rock supergroup Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, whose harmonies defined the 70s. His voice was part of some of the era's most iconic songs, including Deja Vu in 1970, which became a huge commercial success.
If I had ever been here before, I would probably know just what to do.
Crosby's decline was due to his addiction to drugs, poor financial decisions, and legal troubles. His substance abuse spun out of control and led him to prison for drug possession. These truly siphoned his finances, and by 1985, Crosby was compelled to file bankruptcy. He had no money left to pay his debts, and his career was seriously in jeopardy. Crosby continues to tour and record as a solo musician and with other legends.
If I had ever been here before, I would probably know just what to do.
Through it all, Crosby has managed to stay current within the music scene. His later work has received critical praise, and he's remained somewhat successful. Number 6. Billy Joel. Scammed by his own manager.
I could not leave you.
Billy Joel was tagged as the Piano Man from his hit single of the same title.
Sing us a song, you're the piano man.
Hit albums like The Stranger in 1977 turned him into one of the most successful musicians of the 70s. Billy Joel's financial troubles did not arise because he made bad investments or engaged in wild spending, but his own manager had embezzled millions from him. Frank Weber was also his brother-in-law and had been taking money from Joel over a number of years. Finally, after discovering the theft, Joel filed for bankruptcy in 1989, even though he was one of the top-selling artists in the world.
It got a little scary. Wow. Am I going to be able to make a living?
The fortune was lost because of betrayal at the hands of someone he trusted. Billy Joel is still having a very successful career today. He performs monthly at Madison Square Garden and has an enormous following. He is not only one of the most renowned musicians, but also a great businessman. Having earned millions through concerts and other means, today, despite all that setback, he is financially stable. Number 7. Sly Stone. From mansions to living in a van. The mastermind behind Sly and the Family Stone, Sly Stone, was a genius during the 1970s. His 1971 album, There's a Riot Going On, often finds its name among the most influential albums of the era. This is a sad case of how substance abuse and poor financial management brought Stone down. While his career was in full flight, he became more enslaved to drugs with each passing day.
I can somehow be a great critique, for myself.
Yeah.
I can react spontaneously before I realize that I'm going along with what I'm doing.
His erratic behavior made his band members and management quit. He also blew away the fortune on conspicuous spending. By the 1980s, Sly Stone was homeless and broke, living in a van. Indeed, it was a tale of tragic self-destruction.
That true? Are you going into rehab?
I'm going to rehab.
You're going to go to rehab?
Yeah.
So you are still using? People were saying you're broke, but you're getting an RV tomorrow. How'd that work? If
People know
you're
me when they'll make things easier for me.
so it was a gift.
Sly Stone's life today remains in mystery to many. He had his fair share of health issues, among other legal battles, for years. Recently, he made a few public appearances, but his performance days are long gone. Number 8. Peter Frampton. Financial issues after Frampton comes alive.
Shadows grow so long for my eyes.
Frampton Comes Alive by Peter Frampton in 1976 became one of the best-selling live albums of all time, launching him into superstardom. His blend of charismatic stage presence and guitar skills made him an enduring figure in 70s rock. Coming into the 80s, following the huge success of the late 70s, Frampton's career went on the downturn. Some of his business transactions turned out pretty sour, coupled with not-so-clear strategies pertaining to his music career. On top of everything, Frampton was notorious for living way over his budget. Though he never filed bankruptcy, in the 1980s, Frampton found himself having an utterly drastic decline in fortunes. Frampton has since bounced back, touring and releasing albums well into the 21st century. He is still an active musician known for his performances and his guitar work.
Shadows grow so long before my eyes.
In recent years, he has made headlines due to his battle with muscular dystrophy, but he continues to perform. Number 9. Ace Frehley. Kiss's Spaceman and His Money Problems. Ace Frehley was the guitarist in Kiss, one of the most iconic rock bands of the 70s. He had guitar riffs that helped define Detroit Rock City and Beth. As the spaceman of Kiss, Frehley managed to bring out a persona in him that fans loved. After leaving Kiss in 1982, Frehley's career took a nosedive. His personal issues, including substance abuse and wild spending, made him sink into financial trouble. He had to face a lot of ups and downs in finances during the 80s and often found himself in debt due to bad business decisions.
I've always wanted to time travel, you know. It feels like I've gone back 15 years in time and here I am again.
Frehley has been touring on and off lately, solo and sporadically with Kiss. He keeps busy in rock circles, but his financial downfall in the recent past has tempered his spending today. Greg Allman. Legal troubles and drug addiction cost him everything. Greg Allman was a founding member of the Allman Brothers Band, whose recordings were essential to the development of Southern rock. His album, Brothers and Sisters, is considered a classic, and his band was one of the most famous in the 1970s. Greg Allman was plagued by a combination of legal troubles, drug addiction, and financial mismanagement. He had some very public legal battles over his estate and had a hard time keeping his financial situation together while dealing with his addiction.
I went through a long period of my life of drinking. I went to 14 rehabs. I sat there and just cried like a baby. And I kicked heroin, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes, and lived the rest of my life in peace.
Despite his success, Allman was unable to manage his wealth properly, leading to bankruptcy. Never to stop touring or recording well into the 2000s and 2010s, his final solo record came in 2016, Southern Blood. It is quite unfortunate to have to say it, but in 2017, Greg Allman succumbed to liver cancer. His music lives on, though. Fame and fortune aren't always permanent, but smart choices can be. Nobody thinks their success is going to disappear in one night, but it did for them. Some made their way back, while others lost it all. Which one of these stories hit you the most? Discuss it with me in the comments below. And if you go crazy over stories like these, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification.